war never changes.
This is the most iconic quote of the Fallout franchise. This quote is said in every mainline Fallout game. This line is very important because the reason for wars are different, but at the end of the day, war never changes. I want to say this in the most non-controversial way as possible, but I like war. Not the act of war, but how it changes everything in the world. When it comes to war, it's meant to incite change. War is the reason for changing the world, for better or for worse. The American Revolutionary War established the sovereign United States of America. The Civil War saw slavery abolished nationwide. The act of war guarantees change. That's why war stories in fiction are such a big deal. The story you are invested in is guaranteed to change. It's meant to be the end of the world as you knew it and the start of a new one. War arcs are especially important in anime and manga, as a war arc can elevate a series to being elite or can lower the overall value of a series. Looking at you, Naruto. Many series in the past have laid out the blueprint for developing a war arc. There's Bleach's 1000-Year Blood War, One Piece's Marineford, Naruto's 4th Grade Ninja War that have set the standards of the do's and don'ts of a war. So when it was My Hero Academia's turn for a war arc, there was reason to be concerned. A war has to showcase everything special about a series. Every war must have good pacing, action, memorable moments, great character moments, conclude or start up character development arcs to be satisfying. And while those things are achieved in the war arc, I think what sets this war apart from other war arcs is how much change this war brought to the world and just how well thought out this war actually was. So join me as I explain why the Paranormal Liberation War arc is war done right. Every war has a reason for happening, but what caused the Paranormal Liberation War? Well, we have to give our thanks to Hawks. It was because of Hawks' work with the Paranormal Liberation Front that the heroes were even able to prepare for the battle against the villains. The villains spent months planning and building up their forces so that they can achieve their ultimate goal. Their goal is to put the world into chaos so that they can take control and reform it in their vision, but the heroes are here to stop that from happening. This is a pretty good reason for starting a war, to assume control. I mean, that's pretty much what all wars are for. The villains want to gain control while the heroes want to stop it. But something else that is done really well in this arc is the preparations, how each side prepares. The League of Villains and Meta Liberation Army joined forces to create the Paranormal Liberation Front. Reed Destro saw Shigaraki as someone that really represents what the Liberation Front wanted, liberation of all quirks. So he joined forces with Shigaraki. Together they have thousands of soldiers and powerful quirk users such as Reed Destro, Getten, Twice, Gigantomachia, and with the aid of Dr. Ujiga and the Nomus, this team seems unstoppable. They were almost fully ready, but they just needed 4 months for Shigaraki to obtain the All-for-One quirk. Then after that, they'll be ready to set the world into chaos. On the flip side, the heroes needed to do a bit of catching up. They prepared every student for war by having them go on mandatory work studies, which is why we got the Endeavor Agency arc. It was good seeing both sides prepare for this battle. It added suspense and built up hype for the actual war. And man oh man was this war great. But what about the actual war? Well, first thing you have to notice is the planning and strategy that has taken place during the war. First, the heroes launched a full assault surprise attack on the villains. What better way to win a war than by ending it before it even began? That was the mindset of the heroes when the war took place. They couldn't give the villains a chance to fight back, so they went on the attack when the villains least expected it. It was a great plan of attack and strategy, but there's more to the hero's strategy in the war. Did you ever take a moment to think why each hero is where they are? It seems random at first, but the hero teams at Jakku City and the Gunga Mountain Villa were made this way for a specific reason. Looking at the heroes at the Gunga Mountain Villa, it consists of heroes who are really effective in capturing and dealing with large numbers of villains. Midnight's quirk allows her to put nearby people to sleep by releasing a sleep-inducing aroma from her body. This gas does not cover a large area, but that's what her fans are for. It allows her gas to cover a large area. Then there's Edsha, who uses his quirk to puncture the lungs of villains, forcing them to breathe in Midnight's gas. Calming Woods has his super move Lacquer Chain Prison, which allows him to restrain large amounts of villains, which is a lot easier to do when they're all asleep. Mount Lady seemed to be at the Gunga Mountain Villa specifically to handle Gigantomachia. Then we jump over to Jakku City, where some of the heroes there are more suited for one-on-one combat and evacuation. Wouldn't make much sense for the Paranormal Liberation Front to have tons of soldiers stationed at the hospital. For instance, Mirako and Endeavor are arguably the two best heroes for one-on-one combat, and thus will be better better suited to take on Nomus at the hospital, especially Endeavor, since his quirk allows him to burn away the regeneration cells of Nomus. Wash's quirk allows him to create bubbles that can carry people and get them off the ground, which was perfect since Shigaraki decided to, nuke the city. Wash's quirk was very useful for allowing people to escape the war zone safely. They even started to evacuate citizens prior to the actual attack on the hospital. The heroes at the Gunga Mountain Villa specifically are there to deal with a large amount of people, since, the villa is where they kept most of their soldiers, so they need a lot of heroes who can deal with a large group of people. Then people like Endeavor and Mirako and, Aizawa are great with dealing with the Nomus, so they were there at the hospital. I don't think I've seen anyone on the internet talk about how the hero teams at Jaku City and the Gunga Mountain Villa are structured in a specific way to deal with, the villains there. This is a very nice attention to detail because this is like something that you do in a war. Strategy is required to win a war. The strategy of the heroes really makes this war feel like a war, and it goes unappreciated. When it comes to the fighting in the Paranormal Liberation War arc, almost every character goes beyond the phrase. I know the motto of My Hero Academia is go beyond plus ultra, but there are characters in this arc that just go beyond that term. The way the characters fight and the things they do in this arc just shows you what the heroes are willing to do to win this war. Pro Hero Midnight was willing to break the law to put Gigantomachia to sleep, and when she failed, she forced the students to do the same. Midnight ordered kids to break the law. Desperate times call for desperate measures. Or let's look at Dr. Ujiko. When he was confronted by the number 5 Pro Hero Mirako, he decided to release 5 unstable Nomus. Even though he knew these Nomus weren't complete, he released them anyways to give Shigaraki more time to complete. And when that failed, he decided to hit the big red button and release Shigaraki when he was only at 75%. This was the last resort, but yet he still did it because the goal of the Paranormal Liberation Front means that much. And speaking of Mirako, she took on 5 high-end Nomus. Even though she was outmatched, she didn't wait for backup because at any second, Shigaraki would be awakened and she took on these Nomus by herself. She risked life and literal limb to defeat these Nomus, and when she realized she couldn't hit them anymore, she didn't run for safety, she went straight for Shigaraki's tube. This is completely out of character for Mirako because she has always been shown to be this complete meathead character. Even while being pierced and ripped to shreds, she continued to push in order to destroy Shigaraki's tube. But while we're on the topic of pro heroes, let's look at the number 1 hero, Endeavor. This guy was absolute fire during this arc, no pun intended. After Shigaraki finished nuking the hospital, Endeavor didn't waste any time. He hit Shigaraki with the Hell's Curtain, a new super move. And you thought Endeavor's plus ultra Prominence Burn was going beyond? How about a Prominence Burn and Hell Spider combo? Endeavor during this arc was going beyond plus ultra and showed how desperately the heroes needed to win this war. Then there's Aizawa, who made one of the biggest power plays in the arc. After being hit with the quirk destroying bullet, Aizawa without hesitation cut off his own leg so that the bullet's effects won't activate. Aizawa couldn't afford having his quirk being turned off because he knows that he's basically the only reason the heroes have been able to even compete with Shigaraki. Winning a war this big requires sacrifice. Aizawa knew that to win this war, he had to keep his quirk activated. Also, the heroes are so desperate that they called in Best Jeanist, the same Best Jeanist we haven't seen fight since he got a hole put in his stomach by All For One. The heroes were so desperate that they had to call an injured hero in to win the battle. Then we jump over to the villain side of things. Mr. Compress mutilated his own body, sacrificing himself in order to get Shigaraki out safely. The goals of the Paranormal Liberation Front were so important that Mr. Compress was willing to kill himself in order to give the villains a fighting chance. But arguably the character that went beyond plus ultra was Midoriya. Throughout the series, we have seen Midoriya destroy his body in fights, but not to the degree that he does in this arc. Midoriya didn't bother holding back in his percentages and resorted straight to 100% when he confronted Shigaraki. Not 45, not 20, just straight to 100. He fought so hard that he not only unlocked one quirk, but 2 different quirks in this arc. He pushed One For All that hard where it was forced to unlock 2 quirks. Even with every limb destroyed and possibly beyond repair, Midoriya kept fighting using his tongue as a last resort. This is beyond going plus ultra. This is more like going multiply ultra. In every fight in this series, we've seen characters push their bodies to the limits, but in this arc, we've seen characters literally destroy their bodies. The fighting in this arc just perfectly embodies what war is like. War is gruesome. War requires sacrifice. War requires going beyond what you're capable of. And that's what these characters did in this arc. This is the most gruesome that we've ever seen any of these characters fight throughout the entire series. The brutality in this arc might not seem that special when you look at it at first glance. But from the average fight in My Hero, this looks like a freaking bloodbath. And I think that's why the battles in this arc feel so warlike. This is not what we're are used to. This is beyond what we are used to in My Hero. Change. It's something that happens all the time in life, and it's something that drives the Paranormal Liberation War arc. This war is a turning point for a change in the world of My Hero Academia. So many characters have changed because of this war. The sides of villains and heroes have changed because of this war. This war started off as a mission to take down the League of Villains for good, and instead resulted in Japan changing forever. Dabi might have brought upon the biggest amount of change. Not only did he change his hair back to the more sleeker white, I mean, just look at that white hair, it's so much cooler than the black. But more importantly, he basically changed the entire world of My Hero Academia by revealing that he was Toyo Todoroki, the spawn of Endeavor. Dabi changed everything about the Todoroki family. Toyo Todoroki isn't actually dead, he's very much alive. Knowing this information, it makes me think about how the rest of the family will look at Endeavor from here on out. Natsu will blame Endeavor for the death of Toya, but will his feelings change knowing that his older brother is actually alive, and not only alive, but a villain? And speaking of Endeavor, imagine how the public feels about him now. The #1 hero's very own child is one of the most dangerous villains in the world, and it's all because of how Endeavor raised him. He's supposed to be the guy that puts everyone at ease when he shows up, but now the public is kind of scared of him. The public is distrusting of Endeavor, and not only just Endeavor, but heroes in general. I mean, look at what they saw on TV. Endeavor was exposed as a child abuser. Hawks got caught in 4K. How do they catch you in 4K? Multiple cities were destroyed because of the heroes failing to stop the villains. The public no longer have faith in the heroes. I know a lot of people were upset about there being no clear winner. You know, they want to see everyone dead, but the thing is, there was. The villain's goal wasn't to kill all the heroes, but it was to change society, and that's exactly what they did. Dabi's reveal in the destruction of multiple cities has caused hero agencies to close down completely, caused pro heroes to retire, and caused the public to lose faith in the heroes. Citizens don't even trust heroes to protect them anymore. They would rather arm themselves with support items and fight villains on their own than to have the heroes show up and try to save the day. Look at this panel from chapter 300. This panel right here basically summarizes the current state of the world that we are in now. Society has been destroyed and the blame has been placed on the heroes. It's the exact world that the villains wanted. So yeah, they did not win by killing all the heroes, but they won by sending the world into anarchy. That's exactly what they wanted. The Paranormal Liberation War arc is an arc that not a lot of people are going to be forgetting anytime soon. It was an arc about a world-changing war. With this war, we saw epic moments, deaths, and reveal, but most importantly, we saw a change. A change in the status quo, a change in perspectives, a change in how things are. Everything might have changed, but one thing will stay the same. The constant battle between heroes and villains. Because war
never changes.